Mm-hmm.
It's so incredibly complicated, and I was just doing mozzarella cheese because it was probably one of the more easy cheeses that I could find to make. And so I bought like the rennet, which helps separate the curd and the whey, and I bought cheesecloth and like molds and all this stuff to try to make it, special cheese thermometers, but it was like too complicated. But then I stumbled across the fact that you can make processed cheese really easy, American
Mm-hmm.
cheese, which
Interesting.
which basically is adding kind of some stabilizers and stuff to existing cheese. So you take like a Colby or a really mild cheddar, and then you add like some gelatin and stabilizers to it and hot milk, and then you put that into a mold, and that's American cheese. So I'm gonna give it a go. We'll see if it tastes better than your Kraft singles
Yeah, let me
for
know.
grilled cheese. I'll let you know. So yeah, that's what I got on my afternoon agenda.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap stuff up. Try to get some stuff out. This week's been really frustrating.
yeah.
Just really frustrating. Trying not to feel overwhelmed with lots of stuff going on, and whatnot. So yeah, just I'm done after today. Like I'm done for. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I need
I
it.
hear you. And apparently, we have a 3-day weekend, which
We do.
I didn't realize until I was talking to a prospect, and he said, "Hey, legal's taking a bit longer." I said, no worries. Let's touch base on Monday and see where we're at, and we'll kind of set a kickoff date based on what we hear on Monday." He's like, "Monday's a holiday." I'm like, "Hey, bonus 3-day
Yeah,
weekend." That was unplanned.
yeah.
So that's that.
Nice.
Yeah, kicked off a fun project yesterday with grad students at ETSU. So
Sweet.
that's going to be super fun. They're building a kind of brand strategy, go to market website strategy for the Mate ROV competition. Which, if you haven't watched the videos on YouTube, it's super cool. So it's kind of like Robot Wars, but underwater, or not robot. What is it called? BattleBots.
Yep.
But
But
underwater, and
underwater.
they're not necessarily battling each other. They're doing like they're solving different puzzles and things with these underwater robots that teams build.
Okay.
Um, and it was really cool because Dr. Marshall yesterday was talking about how I think it was last year, one of the years before, there was a high school team that went head to head with a team from Purdue, and they beat them, and everyone was all psyched about it. It was so cool. So yeah. Anyway, that's going to be a fun little project, helping out the students there. They're always fun to work with.
Hmm.
So
Nice. That
yeah.
sounds like fun.
And finally, speaking about fun experiences, we spend a lot of time talking about experiences, and we're spending a lot of time internally, kind of
Hmm.
strategizing about what is it like to work with 33 Sticks, what experience do we create, and oftentimes we think that these brand experiences have to be these big elaborate strategies and take a lot of time to build and money to pull off. And last night I went to a local burger place, went through the drive-through to get a hamburger, and I got home, and someone had written on my fry sauce lid container, "You are really cool." And I'm like, that took them like 5 seconds to write. Although the penmanship was really nice. Maybe it
Hmm.
took them 10 seconds to write. I'm like, that was unexpected and made me
Hmm.
smile. And it's like, it didn't really cost a whole lot to create
No,
a really fun experience. So,
that's interesting. That sounds cool.
yeah. Anyway. And it's Friday.
Yeah.
We don't
So
usually
so
record on Friday.
yeah, we don't normally record on Fridays, but it's a nice change of pace. But tell me a little bit more about that place. Franchise, local, like.
No, it's just a local burger place. It's actually an interesting study. I would love to be able to get a hold of their ownership team or management group to ask them lots of questions, because they've been one of the few, and I think the answer may be in being incredibly deliberate and slow, but they've been one of the few local restaurants that has gotten a lot of attention that hasn't completely destroyed the quality of their food experience.
Hmm.
So when I first moved to the area that I live in 1999, this burger restaurant was like down the street. Like, it was a 2-minute drive from my house to get there. And it was a single location. It was just their one location, kind of like your a little bit more upscale, but like your small town burger joint. Just like really good burgers and fries and shakes. And it was kind of the place that all the locals would go to get burgers. Um, but they did your traditional burgers, but then they had kind of your little fancier burgers. So my favorite burger there is their bacon blue burger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blue cheeseburger with bacon, like thick cut bacon. It's really good. And anyway, so that's the place, and single location for probably I don't know how long. I don't know how long it was there before I moved there, and it was a single location for probably a decade after I moved here. And super popular. Like you would, if you go there between like 5 and turn down my volume here, 5 and like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, like parking lot packed, drive through packed. In fact, the drive-through would be so busy that they invented this multi-lane drive-through. I think way before it was like in vogue at like restaurants. I think McDonald's is experimenting more with it now, where you have multiple drive-through lanes. At least here we have that option.
I've seen a couple of them.
So, I mean, they were doing that before anyone else, where they had so much drive through traffic that they invented this multi lane approach where after you ordered, you were segmented into different drive through lanes based on the speed of your order, so that someone getting a shake, wouldn't have to wait behind someone getting like a fish and chips meal and a hamburger.
Or,
So
or ordering for a family of 10.
yeah, so it
Yeah.
became really, really efficient. That's how kind of popular and busy they got. And then more recently, a couple of years ago, they expanded to a second location, um, down the street from me, in the same relative area. It was very near the Adobe campus in Utah, just across the freeway from Adobe. They opened that second location, and then they've probably about every 18 months to 24 months they've added a new location, and they're up to 5 locations now. But the quality has remained incredibly consistent, which is phenomenal, because there have been other Utah brands that have kind of gone through a similar journey. I remember there was a Mexican restaurant by where I worked right out of college called Bajio, and it was phenomenal, phenomenal. And it was a standalone restaurant for probably, again, a good 10 years. And I think the owners were like seeing, ooh, we have opportunity, we can expand. And almost overnight, I would get my favorite thing there was steak nachos. So it was this big tin of nachos with shredded cheese and cheese sauce and big chunks of like slow smoked pork or beef and salt. Oh, it's so good. And almost overnight, that slow cooked steak and beef that just was like fork tender was turned into this like dog food brand of beef, where it was like this gelatinous like cube and just hard and rubbery. And I'm like, ugh. But it was because they were trying to expand, and they expanded to, I don't know, like almost overnight, 20 or 30 locations just incredibly quickly. And it just fell apart and crumbled. They filed for bankruptcy, and it's no more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. And in fact, to reminisce or to maintain that memory, they held kind of a fire sale, and I bought a table. They like liquidated everything, and I bought like a table and a set of chairs from the restaurant to have, just to kind of have as a reminder of the restaurant, and I still have them. So, and again, I'm sure you've seen it. There's a good probably 8 to 10 restaurants just in the local area that started as a local single location, got the buzz that they were really good, decided to super expand or franchise, and now they've just all gone to crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time, and I think it's most notable with food establishments.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
this is exactly what I want to talk about today.
and this wasn't even planned. So.
No, it wasn't. It's a great example. That's why I started kind of asking for more detail, because there a couple weeks back we had mentioned, we kind of went off on this tangent. So let's hold there and we'll come back to it. The concept of active versus passive ownership or management or participation, however you want to think about it, active versus passive. And again, like the most obvious place where you see it is food.
Yeah.
You can quickly see when the founder or the group that started the establishment, their attention has turned elsewhere. The food quality quickly changes. I've seen it too with
Yeah.
some local establishments in this area as well. It was great, and then all of a sudden you could tell something changed.
Yeah.
Either they quietly sold, other people come in, their attention's gone elsewhere. But then on the flip side, you've also seen it, like there are establishments that it's a single location. They were around before I was born. And like as we were preparing for my dad's funeral, like there were a couple places that came up, like that my mom would talk about, like that are still in existence today, run by the same family, the same attention to detail, but they were around when my parents were dating.
Yeah.
And like they went on some of their early dates to some of these places, and it's really
Yeah.
funny when you think about that.
Yeah, and I mean it conjures up so many thoughts in me, and one is, and to be honest, I'll be completely selfish. One, because I like patronizing those locations, and two, it's the kind of business we're building.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that those business owners deserve a lot more, and maybe they don't care. Maybe them being invested in the craft and doing something that they're proud of is all the recognition that they need. But I just feel like these business owners that decide to go down this path and say, you know what, I'm going to stick with doing what I'm passionate about, and I'm not going to compromise on it. And I may not get all the money and I may not get all the attention, but it makes me I feel like they deserve a little bit more attention. I feel like they deserve our praise a bit for going down that path, because it's far too easy to fall to the seduction of increasing revenue. And we see it all the time.
Well, I mean, it's almost like people are pushed that way, or they're shamed into that direction. What do you mean you're only a single location? At
Yeah.
this point, you've been around this long, you should have five.
So, I mean, I've had that conversation. I
I
don't
know
know if
I'm
I've,
poking the bear.
yeah, I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast or not, but I've had that conversation with people in the industry, peers in the industry, companies that have expressed interest in purchasing 33 sticks, and then they kind of look under the covers and they're like, "Wait a minute, you're just a single location, like you're nothing. You're just a lifestyle business. You're not really a business." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course, like we're invested in the craft of this. We're not here to just sell out to make you guys an extra buck, you know? So it's very near and dear to me, the conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's funny because also part of this, it's where we'd started talking about this before was in the context of sports teams.
Hmm.
You see this with sports teams where there's like a family that owned it, or a group of families that owned it, and they cared about it. And yes, you can care too much, a la the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones, but they care about it, and there's this culture that's there,
Yeah.
and you know what it feels like to go to a game, to be a fan of that team. But then in say the last 25 years, you've seen more and more companies, like
Yeah.
corporations, buying sports teams, because it's kind of the vogue thing
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
it's in vogue to, as part of your corporate portfolio, have a sports team or two.
Yeah.
And you see a change, like it's the Philadelphia Flyers fans this year are more or less in revolt for multiple reasons. It's Comcast purchased the team back in the mid 90s, but like the original owner was still in charge.
Mm.
While he sold the majority share, he was still kind of running the ship. He passed away a few years ago. And over those years, it was this slow creep. But like in the last season or two, you've really felt it, where it's like it's no longer the team we've been cheering for forever. For me, since I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Um, there's definitely a different feel, and you could tell that
It's a
the
business.
team, yeah, the ownership only just views it as a line item on the corporate balance sheet. That's it.
Yeah.
And like people, like at this point, like their social media, like anything they post, everybody just goes in and spams them with sell the team, sell the team, sell the team.
Yeah.
Like bring in ownership that gives a shit about the team,
Yeah.
um, and cares about winning.
Yeah. I think we were fortunate enough here in Utah to have a similar experience with the Miller family owning the Utah Jazz for most of my lifetime. Until very recently, they sold it to Ryan Smith, who was the founder of Qualtrics. Um, but yeah, they weren't a conglomerate. They weren't a corporation owning it. It was the Miller family owning it. And they took a very humanistic approach to running the team. And so it was about doing things a different way. And I think we were very fortunate to see that experience. And I'm hopeful that Ryan Smith takes that trajectory and continues it, because there are so many sports teams that it is a business. It's and still it's still a business. I'm not saying that to say that it's not run as a business. It's not run to be successful from a profitability and a financial, of course. But that's not everything. Going back to the Simon Sinek example that I think we've brought up quite a bit with his TED Talk, where he talks about revenue isn't a purpose, it's a result. For so many of these sports teams that are owned by conglomerates, their purpose is revenue. And for so many of the analytics agencies in our space that are owned by conglomerates, their purpose is revenue. And revenue isn't a purpose, it's a result. And it's no wonder that fans in Philadelphia or buyers of analytics services that are buying from conglomerates are saying this is a really crappy experience. Well, yeah, because you're buying from someone that has made revenue their purpose, and almost always that's going to create a really crappy experience. And going back to the restaurant example, that's why they became crappy experiences, because revenue was their purpose. It wasn't to create amazing food. It wasn't to create lasting memories over generations. It was how can we make the most revenue that we can? And that decision where you make revenue your purpose almost universally is guaranteed to make for bad
Mhm.
experiences.
And it's funny, like those that are like raving fans of a brand, of whatever, like they frequent the business regularly, like they're also the ones that, like, when they start to complain, they start to
Hmm.
see like issues and cracks there, they're also the ones to get bashed for, like, you go there all the time, why are you always complaining? Well, I mean, that's part of it, is part of being a raving fan of something, constantly frequenting or going to enjoy something, notice the subtle changes that happen,
Hmm.
because like these changes of, like, a founder starting something, being actively involved in running it, ensuring quality, all of those pieces, as they say move on or become maybe more less active in the day-to-day running of the business, things don't change overnight.
No.
It's this slow gradual change that you're only going to notice the beginnings of if you're like that raving fan that's there all the time. All of a sudden you start to notice, like, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel like it used to.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe the people who don't go there as often aren't going to pick up on it until it's much further down the road. And that's what it just drives me nuts, like,
Yeah.
because there are a couple brands that I thoroughly enjoy.
Mm.
I purchase from them frequently, and there are a couple that, like, yeah, I've noticed changes, and I'm I like I'm the first one to be bashed when I say, like, yeah, it's just not the same, it's not right. Well, you go there all the time, why are you complaining?
Yeah.
That grinds my
It's
gears.
that really grinds my gears. Um, it's a great point. And um, it's one I think about a lot, and I think the stupid corporate, and this is the second time I'm going to use this term in 2 days. The stupid corporate buzzword is eat your own dog food. And it's apparent when that change happens, it becomes really clear when the ownership stops eating their own dog food. It's like,
Mhm.
you guys aren't eating your own food, you guys aren't coming here and being guests in your hotel, you guys aren't you guys aren't coming to the games and watching as a fan there. It
You're
is
not greeting the fans.
Yeah, it's clear when there's a delineation of I'm actively involved in running this business, and when the decision is made that I'm going to step away and this business is a line item that generates revenue.
So one of the brands I'm passionate about. Anybody who knows me, I go to Walt Disney World once every 18 months, if
Hmm.
sometimes not more frequently than that. It's one of the places I enjoy going,
It's the happiest place on
and
earth.
it is. And like, so, reading a lot of the stuff, from Walt Disney as he was involved in building the parks, there's some fun stories that he would walk the parks, in the morning before people would get there. Like he was actively involved in the designing of them. Like people talk about like how they knew how many trash cans to put. Like again, part of this is urban myth, or part of it urban legend, company myth, but also partly true. How far to put a trash can.
Mm.
And the story goes that it's how long it takes to eat a hot dog. So he'd walk and have a hot dog as they were designing it, walking, eating. Oh, drop the wrapper. Okay, so I started back there, trash can there, trash can here. And
Mm.
that's the distance. Again, there's a little exaggeration in there, but there's also part truth there. They talk about after Disneyland opened, he would go in the morning and he would drive the vehicles up and down Main Street. And part of it was
Mm.
for fun. Like, I mean, it
Sure.
was basically his backyard. He was
Yeah,
playing in his
yeah,
backyard with his
yeah.
toys. But you can't also tell me that he wouldn't notice like something doesn't feel right. There's potholes starting to form here along Main Street. Like being that involved where you're going through the same experiences as the people who are going to come into the gate a couple hours later, you're going to pick up on stuff.
Yeah.
And that's honestly that's one of the companies where like I've noticed a change in the last 2.5 years within the theme park division of Walt Disney, the Walt Disney Company, where they like you can just tell that there's a bit of a change, and it's focused on revenue and less on the guest experience. And this is someone who for several years had an annual pass, someone who is looking to see, when do I book my next trip. So it's like there's definitely, I felt a change within that brand too.
So let's explore that a little bit because it's interesting you bring up the trash example and
Yeah.
because that is where my brain was going and I wanted to share an experience from last night about that. But let's explore that a little bit because I think that there may be multiple facets that may lead to that, and one is obviously again making revenue purpose. I
Hmm.
think is a huge trap, but the other one that I was thinking about is it also possible that it could be reflective of a lack of feeling like ownership? For especially for large brands that have lots of like the owner can't be on site in every location at all the time. So how much does a feeling of ownership, a sense of ownership in the brand come to play in that? So the example that I was going to give as you were going down this example with the trash cans was, again, I went to get a burger last night at this local place, and there's a quicker way back out to the road back to my house if I cut through this parking lot of a hotel that sits on the same complex as this restaurant, kind of go through their parking lot and come out the back. And as you exit the burger place and drive into the hotel property, you drive down this split 2-lane road that has a planter in the middle with trees, and then it kind of opens up into the front entrance of the hotel, and that planter was littered with trash all along the sides of the gutter on the sidewalks, just had like all this garbage and paper and trash lining it. And it's kind of the first thing you see as you drive into the hotel property. And I'm driving down that street and I'm like, if I was the owner of this property and I drove down the street, I'd be like, okay, I got to park my car and go clean this up. Like, oh hell no, this is not how we're going to greet our guests. But this is a national chain. I think I don't know, it's a Marriott or something.
Marriott, it feels like Marriott owns just about everything these days.
I'm gonna look it up now. But it is I don't have it. Hold on. Now I gotta look it up. Otherwise, it's gonna pull my attention until I figure it out. My dog is so barky today. I'm sure this is making for riveting content. Okay. It no, it's a. Oh, is it a? No, it's a Hampton Inn. That's not Marriott. Marriott's across the street. Okay, it's a Hampton Inn. So you drive down this like little entry road into the Hampton Inn, and I'm like, it is clear to me that no one that works at this Hampton Inn has a sense of ownership of this property. Because if they did and they drove in on their way to work and they drove past that, whether it was their job or not, they would have gone out there and cleaned that up. Because again, like it's like this is this how we want to greet our guests? Is this the first experience that we want to give our guests that they're driving into our location and they're driving through like these piles of trash? This is like not good. So going back to my question, how much of it do you think it is that some businesses make a strategic decision to make revenue their purpose, and how much of it is, especially for these larger brands that are growing and scaling, how much of it is that they fail, or they had at one point in time and they failed to maintain a sense of ownership in at least some of their employees?
Mhm. Yeah, and by the way, I think that is probably one of the greatest challenges as you grow, is it's the again, to use another corporate buzzword, empowering people with a sense of ownership. It's one of the hardest things is not just empowering people, but recruiting people that have like that innate desire to want to take ownership of their work and not just punch a clock. So I want to start off by saying this is an incredibly hard problem to solve. And it goes back to like your one of your points in the very beginning is that credit to those business owners, that large or small, that have been able to cultivate a culture where every employee, whether it's at a single location, a business with a single location, or a large multinational brand, where people give a shit and people care about the appearance and what the customer sees when they enter the establishment. um but yes, it is that decision where it's not just empowering, because I hate the corporate buzzword of empower people to do this or empower people to do that. It's like you get this visual of like waving a magic wand and saying you now can do this and you now can do that, and people just miraculously start doing it. No, it's a culture that harps on it and not just empowers people to say they could do it, but holds employees accountable when they don't do it, when they don't like care, like, and that sounds harsh, but there is like, if you want to have that, if you want to prioritize the experience over revenue, you want you want to prioritize the customer over revenue, which, I mean, revenue comes as a result of prioritizing the customer. It's like that's the big secret there. Um, you have to hold employees accountable when they don't live up to that standard. So very, very kind of roundabout way of saying, like, yes, there are companies that when they prioritize revenue, everything else is secondary. So it's hard, if not impossible, to build a culture where employees care and want to take ownership of it. It's almost like you need to prioritize, recruiting and coaching employees to care. Finding those employees where it is just an innate um, part of someone that they care about their work, they take pride in their work, and then further cultivating that within them to care. The customer is going to enjoy it, and the customer is going to come back.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any examples of maybe regional brands or larger brands that have done a good job of cultivating a sense of ownership within their team?
Give me a second to think about that, because now all of a sudden, now that you ask me, I'm not, like, yeah, I'm gonna draw a blank, and in 15 minutes, I'm going to think of one. Um, yeah, I know maybe about 2 years ago, it was, God, what is the name of the brand? Like with the all weather like floor mats and whatnot. They're the ones, I got. I'm blanking on them. With
So
my wife,
WeatherTech?
it might be WeatherTech.
Okay.
I think it is WeatherTech. My wife has them for her Jeep Cherokee, and she gotten them, and then one of the things they talk about is like they're molded for the vehicle, so like it's flush. It's not just the mat, but they kind of come up and curve up, so like that. You can get in snowy, it's snowy or rainy. The water just doesn't run off them into the fabric. It kind of it's like a bit of a bowl. They started bowing in, and they're not cheap, and
They're pricey.
they're very expensive, but they're worth it if you
Hmm.
really want to kind of maintain the integrity of your vehicle. So she called them to complain, to say, like, you pride yourselves on that these are molded to the vehicle, that they're going to keep their shape and whatnot. um I'm having this issue where they're not fitting, and they're starting to bow in and whatnot. And they said, no problem, give us your address, we will ship you replacements immediately at no charge. They shipped out
It's
replacements, they were
amazing.
perfect, they worked. And she'll, again, it's, the next vehicle she gets, she'll buy them again, because they did, like, and they know that they're not a product that it's not a product that you're going to come back and buy even once a year. You're going to buy once, maybe every 3 to 4 years, depending upon how frequently you get a new vehicle. If you really wear them down, you want to get new ones. They know she's not going to immediately come back and purchase, but they took care of her that way.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal example of that. And it takes that long-term vision. We've talked a lot about, is it are we focusing on what we can do this quarter, or are we focusing on long-term value that we're trying to generate
Mhm.
in total? And you can tell companies that have made that decision to say, you know what, this may hurt us in the short term, but every time this is going to help us in the long term.
Like, when I always think of that, or whenever I hear that, I think of, it's from Tim Ferriss's The 4 Day Work Week. And he was talking about, like, one of the first products he launched. He used a third party customer service company, and by default, like, this customer service company, like, customer service associates had to get approval for anything, like any kind of, like, customer, like, reimbursement, or just situation fix over $25. So he was constantly being emailed, customer cases. And he took a look at it, and based on the product, it was a consumable product, the cost of it, and he was like, no, no, you know what, only notify me if it's over $125 or something like that. It was like, and he said, like, customer service cases dropped, repeat customers went up. Just having, like, that guarantee of having someone be able to solve the problem immediately without saying, let me contact management to see if we can't fix this for you. No, okay, it's, I'll ship you a replacement for $99, or I'll do this. Repeat customers went up immediately because people were able to fix it right away.
That's a great example, and it reminds me, and I wish I can remember the name of the book, but there was a similar kind of story I read in a management book that I have somewhere on one of my shelves that talked about that. I think a really similar type of approach that they took to business, and that they said, look, we wanted our employees to feel like they were owners of the company and they had choice to take care of our customers. And one of the questions, or some of the pushback they got, was, well, how do they know what to do in every occasion? It's like, it's going to take a lot of work for you to design like an employee manual that talks about all the things they can and can't do to take care of your customers. And the owner of the business said, we never even thought about putting something like that together. We just said, look, if it's under $200, and it fits within our brand guidelines and our strategy for what we're trying to do, we trust you to do it. Right. So we don't have to say, like, well, this is how you handle this situation, or this is what you can do in this situation. Like, we can't design every situation. We just have to say, here's kind of the boundaries you have. You're bought into our culture and what we stand for as a company. Don't go against that, and you're going to make a good decision that's good for our customers and our company. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's such a refreshing, positive way to look at how to do that, and embed that sense of ownership, because so many companies, especially as they start to get bigger, go the opposite direction and say, by default, we don't trust our employees. By default, our employees are going to do things to screw things up. So we have to put so many checks and balances and things in place to make sure our employees don't do the wrong thing. And there's that stupid meme that gets passed around that says, well, what if our employees do this and it screws up? And then the other person says, well, what if they do something good and it makes us a ton,
Yeah.
it's basically that, like, which path are we going to take? That we're going to assume they're going to screw up, or we're going to assume that they're going to do something good and amazing.
Mhm.
I'd rather take that second path all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, they to that degree, it's they're kind of taking it back to like where we're starting with this is like the active versus passive ownership. It's, being involved and seeing the day to day. Again, now let's go back to where we're talking about like owning a burger shop. Being there every day, greeting customers, seeing how customers are reacting to certain things, seeing how employees are are treating customers, then you're able to make those decisions. Because then what happens is when you're not involved or your attention's elsewhere, um, that's when you have to have like those boilerplate, like, this is how you handle this situation. This is how you handle that situation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, like coming full circle, I think business owners that have decided to take that path and be more intimately involved in the business and grow and scale at a rate that they don't lose the ability not only themselves to do that, but to foster a team that has a sense of ownership should be commended. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're not, right? A lot of times these business owners get lost in the hype around funding and fastest growing and all of this hype. What do you want? I don't know if the glass doors on the office or a help or a hindrance at this point, because she's like, I can see you in there and you're not letting me in.
Yeah, you're not letting me in.
I lost my train of thought. I think I was going somewhere amazing. I've lost it. But so these business owners that are building, like to your example with your mom talking about these places that your parents would go to, being around for decades and generations. Um, these stories get lost because it's not sexy. It's not, oh, they didn't raise a round of like $500 million, and it's like, so what?
Yeah,
They're
they didn't
doing
build a franchise that's now nationwide in
in
those
my
4
mind,
years.
they're doing something that's even more impressive. That they're foregoing this. Maybe easy isn't the right word, but they're foregoing this opportunity to just make gobs and gobs of money on their success. They're deliberately saying, I'm choosing not to go down that path because I know in the long run it's going to create unhappiness for me, for my customers, for my employees, and I'm willing to forego being a multi-billionaire, and I'm still going to be incredibly rich, and I'm going to be able to do it by maintaining this way of life and this way of doing things. That again, it's like the dying of the main street, these little mom and pops, these businesses that are about, we're losing this appeal, and it's unfortunate in my mind.
You just made me think of something. There's two places at the shore. We're talking about like the main street, and we're talking about like the owner being there to greet them. There are these two places at the shore. One's in Margate, the other's in Ventnor. Like there's a whole bunch of mom and pop shops down there, and there's this one place that we normally go to once or twice a year for breakfast. And a lot at this point, it is packed in the summertime. We actually will try to get down there and do it, in February or March before it gets crazy.
Hmm.
We're actually due to do it. We haven't done it yet. We haven't done it since like last February. It's the place, like, in the summer, like you're waiting 40 minutes outside to get in and sit down. Whereas like right now you can just walk in, grab a table, but the owner's there every day. He's there to greet you. He says hi to you and whatnot. And sometimes like he's even the server,
Yeah.
and he's there, but he sees everybody. And this is the time of year where he's going to see his regulars. He's going to see the people that avoid that place in the summer, but will come once a month in the off season. So yeah,
And
actually,
how does it make you feel when you go in there?
it's just like that they give a shit, like
Yeah.
that. It's
It makes
not
you feel,
just,
I think it would probably make you feel special,
it
right?
does,
Like,
like,
I'm
yeah.
a person. I'm not just like some order number. I'm an actual person.
Yeah. And then at the other end is this place. It's a burger joint, a burger and an ice cream place. And the guy, he actually owns, like, he's a financial advisor. He owns his own little firm. He advises, like, people in the area. Um, so he does that for a full-time job. And then this place, it's a seasonal restaurant. It opens up mid-April, like right around Easter, and then will close the second week in October. But he's there day in, day
Hmm.
out in the summer. So he has his regular job, and then he has this, and this is his hobby. And the place has been around in one form or another since the 60s. And in like the last 15 years, he's really themed it up. And it makes you think of like the 1960s soda fountain with the style and
Hmm.
everything and everything. And it's expensive. Like, it's not cheap for, like, even just the three of us to go. It could be a $50 meal, because I mean it's a tourist destination. I'll admit that it's on the island. It's a bit pricey, but I say this every time I leave. The guys earn my business. Like,
Yeah.
he's there. Like, I see him wiping down tables. He's sweeping. He's saying hi to people. He comes over and he says, "How's this? How's that?" There was one time he came over, and my in-laws were with us, and my mother-in-law was just like, I'm not so sure about this one. It feels a little undercooked. It's this, it's that. He's like, say nothing more. 5 minutes later, he comes walking out with a fresh thing, takes that and says, "Here," and took it upon himself to, like, right then and there fix it. And you see him coaching the employees also while he's walking around. But it's after I proposed to my now wife. This is like 6 years ago. We went there afterward to get, like, some milkshakes and whatnot, get some burgers, and we say something to the guy. He's there. Next thing you know, he comes out with his homemade wine,
Mm.
as a little toast. So I'm like, yeah, I will go back there every time, because the dude works his ass off.
Yeah.
He doesn't take that business for granted. And
Yeah.
sometimes I will say, like, in towns like that, you could set a business like that on autopilot.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could set it on autopilot, and you could also kind of go down the path of, well, I'm going to cash in on my appeal and celebrity and maybe scale to 10 locations and get a shit ton of money and ruin the experience, but I'm going to get mine. So again, I think these people really deserve to be celebrated and highlighted, because it takes a lot to commit to doing something different and on a scale that is more than just revenue. And again, I think there's an important point to making sure that every business is financially stable. Without that, there is no business. But making it your purpose just destroys everything. And it's, other restaurants, as you share that experience, take a much different approach, and you can see the difference, right? Like, think about, well, I can't take this back because this ruins my margins, or I can only give you 0.202 ounces of sauce because that's what we've calculated that we can give out in order to make, be profitable on this. Or, they're weighing everything to, like, well, this is like 5 Ps that you like. I can tell that you've made revenue your purpose rather than making a meaningful experience for your customers. And again, so I'm going to share two examples, and I've probably talked about them before, but two local Utah establishments that have my highest praise. So one is a sandwich shop, which unfortunately or fortunately is closed down now. The owner operated it for 35 plus years and has retired, and he was there every day. He knew your name. He was making the sandwiches. He was bussing the tables. He was making sure that the bread, when it came in from the bakery, was up to stand. Like, he was invested, and not only was the food incredible and probably the best sandwich that you could buy in Utah, the experience was unmatched. And then I've also talked about the sushi restaurant, Takashi in Salt Lake, that I enjoy. Similar experience. It's a single location. Takashi, the owner, is there. He's behind the counter. He's in the sushi at the sushi bar, slicing fish and rolling sushi rolls. He's at the fish market in the morning, picking out the fish. And Ben Gaines and I once had the opportunity to have lunch with them, and we asked them the question. It's like, if you show up at 5:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, you aren't getting a table here. It's like, it's so busy. Like, you could open up a second or third location and crush it. And he's like, I can't. And I said, why? And he's like, because I pick out the fish, I design the menu, and I don't have the time or the energy to do that for more than one location. And if I can't do that, it's not going to be the same experience. I'm like, damn, dude, respect.
Yeah, it just made me think of something. It's almost like people, crave for like the mom and pop experience, but but part of that as being a customer of that is that chances are there's only one location. Chances are there's limited availability. Like people want the availability that you get with a global chain, but they want the mom and pop experience. And in many ways, they are mutually exclusive because
Yeah.
you're right. Like there's only the mom and pop experience starts to go away as you expand because like I mentioned earlier, crafting a culture that recruits people that care, that in it continues to coach them on caring and making sure that they do follow through on caring is incredibly hard to do. It is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the hardest things in business, I think.
Yeah. And
So yeah, like people want that kind of experience that you were describing. They want the little breakfast shop where the owner's there and greets you and may even be the one to take your order, but they get ticked off when there's a 45-minute wait on a Sunday in June.
it absolutely, and we see that in everything, and we see that in our own backyard and services, right? We
Yeah.
see companies that say we want this mom and pop experience. We want to go with an agency where the owner is involved in actually doing the analysis and the work and the cares, and we have this really human experience. And we want the ultra cheap pricing that comes with a massive brand that has 8,000 consultants and has like a bench a mile wide. And that if we say jump, they're going to jump because they have 5,000 people on our account. Like these things are mutually exclusive, they don't happen together. You either
Yeah.
can have the big box experience, and that's completely fine if that's what you want, or you can have the owner operator mom and pop business, which is a completely different experience when they have different experiences, different availabilities, different pricing. You get what you pay for.
Hmm.
Which one do you want? They're mutually exclusive. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to wrap it up there because I do want to dig into this a little bit more. I want to continue this conversation because I think we looked at it from a very, very broad level today. We did touch on certain aspects of things like I want to talk about why businesses don't trust their employees. If you're going to hire someone, why don't you trust them? Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about that a bit more. And what are ways that you can again like get away from the buzzword of empowering your employees to do something. It's very easy to say you empower employees to do something,
Yeah.
but following through is the hard part. And I'll be honest with you, like there are times where you and I have talked about something and 3 months later, it's like shit. We didn't follow up on a couple of those things. It's hard. It's difficult. Those are the hard things. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about a couple of those things, like yeah, the experience in trying to build those kind of things. So let's go ahead and wrap up for now. This has been a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and let's keep this going next week.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thanks a lot, man. This has been a
Yep.
lot of fun.
Agreed. See you next
Cool.
time.
Yep. Talk to everybody later.